Life itself is like a long journey with a lot of small trips along the way. It's about going from home to other places, from one culture to another, from being a kid to becoming an adult, from not knowing to knowing. Each of these experiences enriches our journey, making our life more meaningful and beautiful. As an erhu player growing up in Taiwan, I've been trained in both Western classical music and the oral tradition. I've tried to explore different cultures as much as I could, seeking out diverse musical influences and experiences. It is not until when I relocated to the US for graduate studies that I found myself transcended to a new horizon that is not only wide open but also mind blowing. The US is like a new mixed cuisine in a restaurant called world to me. I have had chance to study in different ensembles for many semesters, such as gamelan, Thai music, Afro-Cuban percussion, Afro-Brazilian percussion, and Korean drumming. There are so much to learn here. Deeply learning those musical cultures make me think of maybe I could do something with my erhu since there are so many talented musicians here. My erhu, a traditional Chinese fiddle, has thus had opportunities to connect with other instruments of these different musical traditions, instead of staying in its own world. My erhu has now become a bridge allowing me to travel with other musicians to explore something new. And this corresponds with Humi Baba's concept of third space, a space that transcends the boundaries of individual cultures, where elements from various traditions converge, intermingle, and create something entirely new. In this project, I collaborate with composers and musicians from different musical backgrounds: Thai, Western classical, Taiwanese, Indian, jazz, Chinese, and Korean. Each composition represents this third space coined by Humi Baba in certain aspects, such as music style, texture, timbre, and the flexibility from musicians. Traveler is about this journey, and I would like to invite you to join me to be part of the journey and witness how my experiences mix with those of others who have generously shared their talents and time with me in it. Come join me to celebrate the music that brings us together no matter where we come from. In this music journey where the known and unknown meet and crash, countless mixtures of culture have taken place so often that a clear-cut borderline in this space has become impossible to draw. Now, please follow me, my travel companion. Let's explore and discover this new musical journey of mine together.
Briefly, this music was inspired by an ancient ballad called Isatekai. The ballad was sung by the Taiwanese indigenous Taiwan people. In the Taiwan language, the word Satekai in the title means lightness, meaning that the ballad was only used by the people during special occasions, such as the harvest festival, we'll call the Tavilan or Masalut, while the people were dancing. For the ensemble, I have chosen four different musical instruments, including three traditional instruments, the erhu, pipa, and changu. I hope to make something fun for the musicians, and I also think that traditional materials can be modern or contemporary. I think erhu is the best musical instrument to perform vocal, especially the singing style of Taiwanese indigenous people. In this music, I would like to include my concept, which is using erhu as an instrument to imitate the singing style of the people. I always think that performing a music piece on the stage can be fun and flexible. In this music, the musicians are free and they are allowed to add their own ideas. I hope that my music can be the bridge for the musicians to connect with each other to achieve a more higher level. To me, they are like travelers beyond time and space. And I also think that a music performance is not just a moment on the stage, but something we can keep exploring again and again. I hope that the audience will have the opportunity to explore the beauty of Taiwanese indigenous music, and I also hope that the audience can feel the happiness and joy from the music.
Home is for Erhu solo, and this piece is based on the daily life of my childhood. It represents the beauty of Taiwanese language. In Taiwanese, we have 7 tones. So in this piece, the first part, the Erhu imitates the dialogue between my parents and me. The voice is my father ordering food with the sound of food truck as the backdrop. So, for example, the food truck was selling the sticky tofu and oyster thin noodles. Sticky tofu in Taiwanese we call 臭豆腐. On my Erhu, I can do like this to imitate the speaking. And like oyster thin noodles, we call 鹅米线. And for the conversations, like, do you want some sticky tofu? We call 恁要吃臭豆腐不? As a response, we say, yeah, sure, it's 好啊. Something like this. For the second part, the Erhu mimics the Taiwanese language speaking as well. And it's about my family like enjoy the food with a joyful melody. So we build in a faster tempo and melody line with the speaking style. And to the third part is a slower tempo to depict our sound sleep and a good dream after having comfort food. And the last part, the Erhu accompanies my own singing in traditional Taiwanese theatrical style with a poem. And lyrics of the poem describe a gentleman's walk routine in his garden in early morning. And it reminds me my father who would walk around his garden like that.
Nam sinh yêu sam kinh, 飘然泪也仙。
I have some composition experience, but mostly in like steel band or jazz scenarios, so I had not written a piece for a world music instrument other than steel pan. So I composed the piece Dreamland. I knew that Chih-I played the erhu, which was something that was very new to me. I had never met anyone who played that instrument before moving to Illinois. And so I really wanted to do something with that, and for whatever reason, I just thought the vibraphone would pair really well timbrally with that instrument. And so I went about composing a duet for those two instruments, and I wanted to use a variety of things that I'd been thinking about for a while. So there's several sort of extended techniques in the vibraphone part. There's some pitch bending with an extra mallet, there's some bowing, and then the erhu part, I definitely needed to do my research a bit on that instrument, but I tried to use some characteristic sounds that that instrument might make and some maybe not so, like parallel fifths that are moving up and down and stuff like that. As I've explored music of other cultures, I've found a lot of times we do not have the superior music in my opinion, or at least maybe not the most complex or most interesting. So I think I would hope that it opens the audience up to new experiences and makes them curious, and they get to learn about different cultures.
Rofai is written for Ranai, the Thai cell phone, and erhu. And Rofai, it means train in Thai language. The main motif of this piece is based on a Taiwanese folk song called Diu Diu Da, which depicts the sound of steam train produced in the past when passing through a tunnel with the water dripping down. The piece has two sections with two tempo levels. The first called Song Chan, level 2, and the second, Chan Diao, level 1. So the level 1 is the half-reduced level of level 2. And it's also arranged in a heterophonic textures where two instruments from different cultures intend to play the same melodic lines. And these two instruments are expected to interpret such melodic lines with variation by adding ornaments and embellishments to create a new taste of the melodies. And for notations, I provide two different notations. For Ranai, I use Thai notations, and for erhu, I use cipher notation. And both allow the room for improvisation. Another thing I want to mention in this piece is that I use the Thai tuning system, which divides an octave into 7 equal steps. Instead of playing in major scale like this, I'll be playing like it sounds really different, and it's really challenging for me because I'm not used to playing like that. But it's really good learning from the Thai culture as well. So overall, this piece showcases the beauty and complexity of the music of Thailand and Taiwan.
One challenge is The theme is very unorthodox for me. It's my point of view for looking from the internal. It's not go exactly what I predicting gonna go. So that would challenge me. I don't think I memorize all that because it's really challenge. It's really long, but seamlessly to transfer my background to your piece. I see mostly Thai musical instrument change the pitch to 12-tone scale. But for this particular tune, I respect Chih-I used the ear and immerse himself to the Thai music quite really long period of time. This composer respect the Thai culture and the music a lot, so that's why he not change whatever it is. He let it be like that, and then he will blend himself to be what it is.
Study Thai music here for 3 semesters in my undergrad, where I learned how to play the Renat Ek, which is one of the instruments we recorded on this album. Playing that instrument, I had some ideas about how I might want to record it in an interesting way. I ended up placing a microphone inside of like the resonating chamber of the Renat, which was fun. And I also got to play the Ching on that track too. That was 1 track out of 6 on this album that I had the chance to play on, and that was fun as well.
This piece, I would say it is a story about a sousaphone we found that it's sold on Facebook group. We took that instrument back and we found that it was pretty bad condition. It's not playable at that time, so we took the sousaphone to a music repair shop to have it fixed. And the guy in that store actually found a beehive inside sousaphone. I was like, oh, that's really gross, but also very cool. And after the cleaning process done and then it's all fixed, the moment that Dan played first note, we thought, oh, it's kind of like a female something. So we decided to name it Beverly, and then we started thinking about, what actually happened to that sousaphone? So that's the background story of how we revive this instrument. And now I'm starting steel pan performance, and of course I want to write a piece that I know much better than other instruments. So I wanted to create a piece using steel pan and then with sousaphone together. So that's the initial idea. Then I started to think, but I wanted to have a wider range for this piece. So the erhu is another cool sounding instrument. So I just want to try to see if I can combine this very, very different instruments from very different cultural background, mix them together. So this piece has 2 meanings for me. One is just discover an instrument out of nowhere and then being able to play. This is just a miracle for me. Another aspect is to experiment those instruments that represent very, very different culture together and how you can make it like a new music or just a new sounding for anyone that hear this piece can imagine like that.
Faith is written for erhu guitar and the tabla, and it's composed with the melodies on Indian raga called Jompri, and follows the 11-beat rhythmic cycle called Chatal Ki Sawari. Although framed within Indian classical music guided by raga and tala, this piece also showcases some important Chinese aesthetics and musical characteristics on the melody, especially those found in the practice of erhu. And I want to mention that this piece will also showcase the musician's improvisation skill. For example, like I didn't give the fixed notation for the guitar. Any guitarist will play this piece differently. And then tabla, I'll give the room for tabla solo, and the tabla player can use the traditional way to add the fancy rhythm patterns as well. So basically, the musician in this piece is the second composer, and throughout the compositions, I want to express that since depression and hope can coexist in us, faith too, as long as we found the room in our heart can get us through all these darkness, fear, anxiety, and hardship.
I was teaching college. I started my own groups and a lot of my own compositions. Being able to integrate world music in, jazz and a lot of different genres. The thing I've discovered is that you really have to know that music well. You can't just I learned tabla for 6 weeks, I'm going to do something with tabla. It doesn't work, You have to really know the music well. I mean, it's kind of like people writing Chinese music. You either have to be born into it or you have to study it for 8-10 years, Because of what I've learned in different groups and different styles and that kind of thing, you learn to kind of do what you do that fits what the situation is. In other words, when we were playing together, I was playing tabla, but I was trying to play tabla in a way that worked with erhu. I mean, you're the only player that I played it that way. But you have a very international approach to your instrument. You're bringing your knowledge that you have of other cultures into that. I think certainly in the US, that's a unique combination. Certainly in the sense of what you're doing on the erhu, which is not traditional either, and doing it in different tal. So there's a number of different elements that not only are unique for the listener, but they're also difficult for the players, There's a great English word called gestalt. And gestalt means if you looked in this office for 10 seconds and then you went outside, you would be able to describe the room. There's file cabinets over there, there's a keyboard over here and stuff. The gestalt is understanding the shape of something. So that's kind of the same thing. That we want to get to that point where you can do all of that, which is not easy. So I'm adventurous, and I'm always up for doing something that's a new combination or something people will really like, And I think we both have a good sense of creating music that is accessible to the audience. Your music and the combinations and stuff, I think you can approach it from many different levels. People might just like the virtuosity of it, they can't appreciate much else.
That I improvised with you is in a more jazz approach of how I would do that in terms of chord structure and what I'm going to play over certain chords. I have a lot of influence from a couple guitar players, Pedro Martins and Daniel Santiago, and they really influenced that. They're kind of jazz adjacent as well. And then the other thing that I really did was really focusing on this time feel, this approach from jazz, from hip hop, and R&B, this kind of bouncy time feel, and I tried really to use that more than anything when we were playing. The raga was so interesting for me. I wish I knew more about exactly what it was when you have a certain notes and pattern, because in jazz we have rules, but it's just a completely different set of rules that the raga has, and I thought the rhythmic part of the tabla was really cool to me. And I can use the same muscle I would for a rhythm section in jazz I flex that same muscle trying to connect with the tabla. My background of not only jazz, but hip hop and R&B, and then just who I am and how I play. I've always felt like I play unique or weird, I can't tell. But I think what it spoke to is that even though there are large styles, like we have this Chinese traditional music and the Indian music part of it and the jazz music part, everybody is still unique. Like the way you play and the way I play can be very different than other people in the music that we like to play in that world. What happened with us was that it not only highlighted this idea that you can have cross cultures and genres being played together, but it speaks to that every single person that you do that with, just like every person you meet in a culture, is completely unique and unlike the next.
Texturally and timbrally, there were so many interesting combinations of instruments on this album, so many different sounds that can be crafted together that one would never expect. And it was challenging to kind of just make everything seem cohesive, especially when you're taking things from two different cultures that don't have a similar timbre. But I made several decisions with the mixing because I knew it wasn't going to sound traditional. There were several times where I purposefully made it sound like unrealistic and I would say like enhanced reality to make it seem just like reality plus. You have the really natural acoustic sound of each of the instruments, but there's a little bit of the mixing magic involved, such as reverb and other studio effects that are implemented creatively to kind of bring together these differing textures. It's important to just recognize that while we are creating something new, there are certain aspects of the tradition that we still have to respect a lot. So while we are taking these instruments from different musical traditions, such as the erhu being combined with renat, or being combined with the steel pan, or being combined with the tabla, it's still important to know characteristic sounds of each instrument in its native style, how it would be played by performers in that culture. So it's a good idea to still have a reference of that, how that instrument should sound before going to create something that's a fusion of that. You need to have a good understanding of the mechanics and the acoustics of the instrument in order to make creative decisions about it later on in the mixing process and understand why what you're doing might be different than how it might be traditionally done. So it's very important to just recognize that although it's not traditional, you still pay respect to the tradition. When you're working on something like this, especially if you're unfamiliar with some of the instruments that you're working with, it's absolutely crucial to be in the room making these mixing decisions with people where this is their forte. This is what they do, they're very skilled at it, so of course I want to know how they want to sound. That goes for any instrumentalist that played on this album, not just the erhu. Every single track on this album is chamber music. I like to view myself as one of the chamber musicians along the way. Although I may not be seen, I'm definitely heard. I think that a very important role for a recording engineer to have is to think of themselves as a musician.
As we continue our musical journey with Traveler, the path ahead has various possibilities. This isn't the end, it's just another stop along the way. With each new track and collaboration, we find places with the beauty of cross-cultural understanding and artistic exploration. So, fellow travelers, let's keep exploring, keep discovering, and keep creating new spaces together.